Everybody out. Excited to have you here with us talking about suffering from Zoom fatigue. And it's interesting, this topic. 2 years ago, very few people were active on Zoom. I remember I first got into Zoom, I want to say it was 2017, signed up, got my package, and I would say, yeah, we're doing a webinar on Zoom. And they're like, what's Zoom? And now I think everybody knows what Zoom is. And we're going to talk about how do we deal with that Zoom fatigue. And actually, we're going to have a couple of different conversations. We're going to talk about is online networking here to stay? We're going to share a couple Zoom hacks, talk a little bit about the office setup to help with the Zoom fatigue, some more Zoom or some in-between Zoom calls, and then we're going to wrap up with this idea of how to be a better online presenter for those of you that do online presentations to help with the Zoom fatigue. I get that's not everybody. Now, as we go through this, I would love to hear from you. What are your thoughts? Our first question is going to be, is online networking here to stay? Do you think it's here to stay or no? What tips and tricks do you have for dealing with that Zoom fatigue? I look forward to hearing from y'all as we go through today. And so let's start off with this conversation. Is online networking here to stay? I posed this question about Zoom fatigue to my social media this week, and I had several people that were like, forget doing online networking in Zoom. Let's go back in person. And I get it and I appreciate it. And I'm in a state, Florida, and pretty much everything here in Florida is wide open, though some stuff is actually, I can't imagine that they're going to shut things back down. But there are some people that are kind of like, okay, maybe not as much in person because there has been a lot of outbreak in COVID lately. But I think that even when we go back to online, to the face-to-face networking, I think that our online networking is here to stay. I don't think it's going to go away. And part of the reason could be just this. So our Facebook user, I'm not sure who you are, Facebook user. If you want to share, if you're commenting on Facebook, your name, then that will let us know who it is. You have to go to restream.io/Facebook to link your two accounts. But our Facebook user shared, I'll never give up on meeting on Zoom. It saves me so much time and money. And I concur. I think that there's a huge opportunity that we have to, utilize Zoom. If I was doing a speaking engagement several weeks ago, and it ended up taking me about 7 hours from start to finish. By the time I and this doesn't even include packing, but by the time I drove and parked and found the location and all of that stuff, did the event, came back, done. It's quite a chunk of the day, whereas if I had been on Zoom, it would have been a 2.5-hour event. I'm not saying that I only want to do Zoom. That is not what I'm saying. I think there's a time and a place for it. And somebody else was talking about, well, just come to Houston or come to Florida to do that online networking. And the in-person networking. And I totally get that. However, if I want to be doing, business with people outside of my own little geography, then Zoom to me is the way to go. Just this morning, I had a one-to-one with Steve from North Carolina, and that would be really hard for us to do face-to-face without this thing called Zoom. So I think that as the world opens up, if it opens up, we will see more and more in-person networking. But I have a feeling it's like we're on a pendulum. It was all almost in-person networking, and then it swung to all online networking. And that's just because it is what it is. And it's going to swing back to a lot of in-person, but I think we're going to land somewhere in the middle, and we're going to see more and more with Zoom. And so I think it's important for us to give some thought to how we can be on Zoom and how we can deal with the fatigue. So I want to talk a little bit about your office setup, because I think that makes a huge difference on, how this being on Zoom. And so in no particular order, I'm starting with mine because, hey, it's me, I'm first. So if you have thoughts on, how to make your Zoom office better, please let us know. So Funko Pops essential oils, plants, oh my. So a little bit about my office that I have going on. I'm not a huge fan of the virtual background. I talk with my hands a lot. I like the natural. Sometimes for me, the virtual background is almost like I can't see into your world. And so it's more of I don't want to say it's a front, because I know sometimes it's branding or what you've got going behind you, but I like seeing into people's world. And so one of the things I do is I've got my books here, branding, but I also have my Funko Pops, and it depends on the season. So like when the lightning one last year, I got me, don't ask me to say his name, I always mess it up, Vasilevsky, who's, not been playing lately. But so I got my little Tampa Bay Lightning Funko Pop. I've got my Stephen King. So when I talk about Stephen King, I've got my little Stephen King Funko Pop. I'm super excited. I just got this one from my mother-in-law on Christmas, which I'm waiting for Valentine's Day. I've got me a Darth Vader Join the Heart Side Funko Pop. So this is a little bit of fun that I have going on that people can see. Now, what people can't see or smell, I have essential oils. So I have an essential oil diffuser here on my desk. It gives me the opportunity to smell so fresh and so clean, just different scents. And so depending on my day, today I've got Cheer Up Buttercup, not because I was down and depressed. I just wanted some happiness. I got Sharpen, I've got Focus. So I have some different oils that I can use depending on my mood, depending on what I'm working on. And plus it gives that freshness. And also I have plants. So my office I've turned into, it's not a greenhouse per se, but I have a couple grow lights, and I've got like spider plants, and I'm not very good at keeping succulents alive. Nothing major, just some greenery. So I feel like, it's an engaging, natural kind of office. It's not a mess. I think that's important when it comes to your space as well, because if it's cluttered, that can add to your energy being sapped out. One of our Facebook users shared, yes, I need more focus. Yeah. And I think that, there's the essential oil focus, as well as I just mentioned, the clutter. When my office is a mess, I have a harder time focusing. So if I can keep my desk clean, if I can keep my office clean, it makes life much easier, much better, and I can focus a little bit more. Now, another thing that it comes to your Zoom setup. So Jason Avery, who is one of my fellow Ascentive facilitators, he's a promoter, which means high energy, lots of changes is necessary. And Zoom is not his favorite thing, and he'll share that. So I don't think I'm sharing any of his secrets. And he actually uses virtual backgrounds, not even for other people, but he's like, if I'm on back-to-back Zoom meetings, and if I'm in the same area, I'll change around my virtual background just so I'm looking at something different. And I think that's hysterical, but you got to do it works for you. So he does kitchen and bathroom remodels. He doesn't have the bathrooms in the Zoom, which I would recommend no bathrooms in the Zoom, but he does put up the pictures of the kitchen remodels sometimes. So, could you change your virtual backgrounds based on your mood if you need that? So this is an interesting one. I was like trying to read because it's super, super long. I wonder if there's a different way. I'm not sure if there's a different way I can put it out there. So Carmen shares, maybe the problem is we are meeting our meat to death. Do we no longer believe employees have half a brain? We must ask ourselves, is it necessary? What will we accomplish? How much will it cost this company? I'm trying to read it over here. If we don't weigh the outcomes and decide. So Carmen, I think that's a really great point. Do we even need this to be a meeting? I've seen, I don't know if it was a coffee cup or a t-shirt or a sign, could this meeting have been an email? And to me, if it could have been an email, or it could be a shorter meeting, I think that just because we have the opportunity to be on Zoom doesn't mean we have to. I know that if I'm doing a meeting with a referral partner or with a prospect, I really prefer to look them in the eye. But I'm also not one that says every meeting has to be an hour. I'm big on let's schedule a 10 or a 15 minute, a 30 minute, an hour if it's needed. So yeah, let's make sure that the meetings are necessary, not just, what is it, Charlie Brown's teacher. We don't want that. Good point. Why are we meeting? A couple other thoughts from some folks out there in the social media world. Michelle shared, I keep water on my desk at all times. I think that's a brilliant idea. If we stay hydrated, our brain likes us better. Darren shares, the environment makes a difference. Having multiple displays has made a difference for me. And he uses Bluetooth earbuds, whereas Brian shared bone conduction headsets like Aftershok's Open Comms are great. I can hear everyone clearly while still being aware of his surroundings. So I was like, oh, that's an interesting aspect. I've not heard of those. It's interesting. I've been going back and forth on getting the earplugs, not to have the audio, but just to be able to pop them in. I actually have, I don't know if we can see it. This is my little microphone with my fancy, keeps the sound from echoing thing going on. I do find that a standalone mic works better than the Wi-Fi because it keeps it going. Different stuff for different folks. Michelle also shared your desk is important. Invest in proper ergonomic setup and it will make a huge difference. Yes. And I know a lot of people like the stand-up desk. My biggest problem with the stand-up desk is I have a hard time staying still. Like I have a hard time staying still when I'm sitting down. So you do have to be careful if you're on Zoom and you've got the stand-up desk that you're not moving too much. All right. So those are some ideas on your office. I'd love to hear in the chat in the comments, what are some other thoughts that you have on making your office helping you out for the Zoom fatigue? Here's an interesting one. I'll put this under Zoom tricks and hacks, and that's hiding your self view. Part of what, especially if I'm doing like a one-on-one meeting, oftentimes okay, here's the thing. We look at ourselves. It happens. And so if we're watching ourselves for 30 minutes an hour times 5, 6, 8 meetings a day, it does wear us out. So when you're on Zoom, if you scroll over your image on Zoom, you get those 3 little dots in the right corner, you click on that, it says hide self view, and it'll actually take away you so you don't see yourself on the screen, while at the same time, you still get shown. So I'm not a fan of turning the camera off if you're in an interactive meeting. No, I want to see you. But if you can turn your self view off, then you're not looking at yourself consistently. It will make you much, 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 much less tired. So hiding the self view is probably my number one trick for getting rid of the fatigue. Plus, especially if I'm meeting with a prospect or a referral source one-on-one, I'm not looking at me. I'm looking at them. And I like to put their picture close to the camera so it looks like I'm looking at them while looking at them on the screen. All right, so we want to hide our self view. That was one of our tricks. So one of the other things I think is important for us as we're looking at getting rid of the Zoom fatigue is what are we doing in between the Zoom calls? I know one of my early mistakes in doing Zoom back in March of 2020 was back to, here's my Zoom at 12, from 12 to 1, from 1 to 1:30, from 1:30 to 2, from 2 to 3. And it's like, holy crap, oh my gosh. And I think it's important for us to master our calendar, to become a master of our calendar. And so for me, I always want to leave 15 minutes when possible between Zoom meetings. Every once in a while, life happens or I squeeze something in and they're back to back. And then I always end up regretting it because I'm like, this is why I'm not supposed to do this. And so by leaving 15 minutes, what this does is if I get, if my first meeting runs a minute or 2 over, I'm not freaking out. Then I have time to go refill my beverage or relieve my bladder, or take the dog out or breathe, or even a quick little meditation. And then I can be in the room for the Zoom a minute or 2 early. And I'm not stressed about it. And so I find that just helps me be less stressed. And anytime we can get rid of that Zoom stress, that will definitely help us out. The last thing we want is Zoom brain. Nicole shared a very kind of similar thing. Take breaks, get outside, gentle stretching, intentional deep breathing, meditation. I love it. And not just 15 minutes in between meetings, but Ann shares, I take frequent 15-minute breaks. Then I walk a fast mile outside or on the treadmill if it's cold out, invigorating. Yeah, sometimes it's even just, I'll tell Alexa, I don't want to say her name loud because she'll say something. I'll tell her to play a song, and then me and my puppy dog have a little dance party. I'm holding her. She's this big. I should have grabbed her, but she's asleep, And that to me sometimes can be a great way. It's just, hey, let me dance around with my puppy for a couple of minutes. Give me a little bit of extra energy. So again, for those of you watching, I would love to hear in the comments below, what are some of your tricks, your tips, your hacks for dealing with Zoom fatigue? How do you get over that? And I want to switch gears here a little bit and flip over to this idea of how to be an online presenter, how to be a better online presenter. Because so I get in like a Zoom meeting, if it's me and one other person, we're having a conversation is one thing. It's another thing when I'm attending a program where somebody else is speaking. And let me tell you, it's an interesting thing, especially when we first converted over March of 2020. I started talking to other speakers. Hey, how are you doing online presenting differently? And they're like, I'm just doing the same thing I do in person online. And I'm like, I spent hours and hours and hours converting a 3-hour program from in person to online, and you're doing it the same. And so to me, there is a difference. What you got to do online is very different than what you have to do in person. And so if you're out there and you're looking to hire a speaker, I do recommend looking for CVPs. So CVP is a certified virtual presenter, and they actually have the Power Woman Worldwide Certified Presenter of Excellence, and they have the eSpeakers certified virtual presenter. So there's a couple different ways that you can go about getting certified to be a virtual presenter. And yes, I'm both if you're in the lookout for it. Because here's the thing, as Bharat shares, you want to make it fun and interactive. To me, if like I sometimes I'll show up and I'll go to something that I've signed up for, and it's like they're playing a video from the speaker. I'm like, well, if I wanted to watch a video from the speaker, I could go to YouTube. And if y'all are anything like me, I very rarely watch educational YouTube videos at one speed. I'm typically watching at 1.25, 1.5. Sometimes 1.75 if the speaker's really, slow. So I like the opportunity to be able to speed it up. I'm curious, for those of you that are watching on YouTube, in the comments below, what speed are you watching this video on? Or what speed do you wish you were watching this video on? Again, the speed does vary. Some speakers, I know I'm a little faster. Get it? So you got that going on. All right. Couple other things for online presenting. One of the things you want to watch is every 4 minutes. Now, I'm not saying like you want to count out every 4 minutes. And I don't remember where I've read this. I've heard it from several different places. But you want to change things up every 4 minutes. And that doesn't mean that every 4 minutes I'm like completely changing gears or breakout rooms or this, that, or the other. I just don't, like if I'm doing a kind of monologue, 4 minutes. And if it's gone 4 minutes long, now it might be time for me to ask a question. Hey, people, show me your hands, or put into the chat box. Maybe I break it up with a joke or a video or an image. So you can utilize that. Try and have a little bit of change every 4 minutes. And do keep in mind that there's 3 types of learners out there. You've got visual, auditory, and kinesthetic. So visuals are the people that like to see it. Auditory, hear it. Kinesthetic is that experiential. And so anytime that you're doing a presentation, if you think about how can I pull all 3 of those components in, that can be very, very powerful. All right. So we've got a thumbs up here just to check into our chat box. See, I'm switching it up. I'm talking about, how to be a better presenter, but now I'm switching it up, talking a little bit, going to the chat box, and I'll go back to being how to be a better presenter. So replying to Facebook user Jason. So we've got some thumbs up for Jason Avery. Love the idea of using the virtual backgrounds. Awesome. Donald. So Donald shared vasf.tech. So I'm guessing that's a website that we can go to find some amazing technology for us on Zoom. Put that in the chat and we'll swing back around to it. All right, swinging back around to this idea of how to be a better presenter online. Tonya shares with us, love it when the presenters have polls or breakout rooms. Staring at a screen listening is tough for me. Yep, I totally get it. And sometimes like the polls don't even have to be like hardcore serious polls. They can be fun, pineapple on the pizza, yes or no. What's your favorite kind of ice cream? And breakout rooms don't have to be go to breakout rooms for 5 hours or even 5 minutes. One of my favorite breakout room exercises is what is called Magic 8 Ball. And I picked this up at a National Speakers Association meeting. And essentially you tell the people, hey, you're going to the room, you got 2 minutes. And you need to come up with one thing everybody in the room has in common. And I love it because it's a great icebreaker. It breaks up the time, especially things if you're kind of hardcore or tedious. So it gives that kind of, Oh, and speaking of breaks, so I've always heard, adult education, 90 minutes or so for before you need a break. But really, I think in Zoom, we're almost at hourly. So if I'm doing a 2-hour program, then I'm definitely trying to do a 5-minute break around the hour. If it's a 2.5-hour program, I might try and stretch it to a single break at 8 minutes. But if it's much beyond that, I'm definitely trying to take a decent break just because our minds need that. And so whether it's a break in the breakout room or a little fun exercise, or a break of let's actually get away from the computer. I know that during one of my presentations that we do, Jason and I actually co-facilitate this one, the room full of referrals. We actually have at the end, I have a seventh inning stretch. And so it's a picture of a ball field and it's take me out to the ball game, which is like 30 or 40 seconds. And literally that's the slide. And it's like, okay, come on, let's stretch it out. If you want to get up out of your seat or just, it's just something to break it up. Tonya also shares interactive meetings are the best for me. Even if it's webinar format, I try and get engaged with the chat when possible. Yeah. The chat box can be a really powerful thing to utilize. When I'm doing a presentation, if I'm going to be doing a video, this is a video. I mean, there's a little interaction with the chat, but it's not like we're at a meeting with it going on. I think it's different than if I'm doing a presentation to people. And I think as presenters, we want to think about how do we keep people engaged? Because if I'm not engaged, I don't want to watch it, especially not at regular speed. And it's like, oh. And so really, we want to think about how do we keep the energy up? How do we have some fun? Be comfortable, make some things happen, have a good time. So that's my thoughts on how to deal with Zoom fatigue. I can't wait to hear your additional thoughts on how to deal with Zoom fatigue. It ain't going away. Sorry, y'all. If you were waiting for it, it's not happening. It's not going away. It's here to stay. Let's make the most of it, though. And, whether you're there one-on-one with somebody, if you're the presenter, try and be present. Try to make the best things happen. And I didn't even talk about rules of be on camera and don't be playing with your phone and all that. That's a whole different conversation. But hopefully you got some tips on how to deal with Zoom fatigue. And I look forward to seeing you at our next live. We got another one coming up next week where we're going to talk about your vision. So be sure to check that out. And I look forward to seeing you soon. Happy networking, y'all.